we saw in messages that we looked at in some detail with Professor Sridhar that you had suggested to her that she might contact you via either your SNP email address or your government email address. Was the suggestion that she might use your SNP email address an appropriate thing to have done in the conduct of your government business?
In reflection, perhaps I shouldn't have done that, but if I had been trying to direct her to a personal email, SNP or otherwise, to keep something off the government system, then I would suggest I wouldn't also have given her my government email address. I wasn't, and obviously the inquiry has looked at that message, I wasn't pushing her in one direction or the other. What I was saying this was, I think from memory, in June 2020 or thereabouts, still a very, very tough, critical phase of the pandemic. Effectively, what I was saying to her is, if there are things you think I should know, don't stand on ceremony. I'd rather know. And at that point, I was, as I think any responsible decision maker should have been, I was trying to deepen my knowledge. I was trying to learn as much as I could about the virus and how to combat the virus. I was desperate to understand different perspectives. I was desperate to understand as much as I could from the experiences and the responses of other countries. Now, let me be very clear, the bulk of that was coming to me through Scottish Government advisors. But I had a thirst to understand as much as possible, and I simply wanted her. She was somebody who had been appearing in the media a lot. I was periodically asked about views that she had been expressing in the media, and I wanted to have an understanding, a deeper understanding of what they were. But if I'd been in any way trying to direct her to a private email address, I doubt if I would have put my government email address in there as well. And of course, the context of what we were talking about was, I think, a paper that she was sharing with the wider advisory group. At no point did Professor Sridhar send me anything that was, for my eyes only, that wasn't either publicly available information or information that was being shared with the advisory group she was a member of.
I think we have seen some emails now that were very recently produced to us by the Scottish Government between yourself and Professor Sridhar, which do, I think, as the direct message exchanges suggest, indicate that she was forwarding on to you policy papers, which I think your position is that those would otherwise have been made available to you. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yes, these were, she was a member, and I know the inquiry is aware of this, she was a member of the Scottish Government COVID-19 advisory group, and these were papers she was preparing for the group. What the group did with them, or what weight it gave to them, that would be for the group to answer, but these were not things that she was preparing for me and sending to me alone. They were simply copies of things that were in wider circulation.
It would, one assumes, be in accordance with the normal practice of the group, that the group would decide whether that needed to be sent to you rather than Professor Sridhar, isn't that right?
Possibly, yes, but at that point, and if this was the wrong approach to take, Mr Dawson, I apologise. At that point, in dealing with an unprecedented situation and a pandemic, I wanted to understand as much as I could. I wanted my decisions to be as informed as possible. I read, perhaps one of the reasons why in the early exchange I was saying I hadn't slept much, I read extensively from public sources of articles and research studies online. I was trying to understand as much as possible and as quickly as possible. And I took the view, if somebody could help me with that, if somebody could send me something that I would otherwise see, but I might see, I'm not even sure, with my apologies to her, that I would have necessarily read everything she sent me, because I might already have seen it, or I would perhaps not think it was particularly relevant. But I had a desire to have as much information in order to deepen my understanding of the situation we were facing as I could. And while there are things we may talk about today where I think, if I was to go back and have my time again, I would take a different decision. I hope I wouldn't take a different decision on that. It was important to me to be as informed and as educated as I possibly could be.